I'm not normally a great supporter of Piers Morgan, but when he gets it right, I think one should acknowledge it. And he did a very interesting interview with Tate, and I want to play some of it here. Let's just play it.
But the bottom line, Andrew, is that almost everything you said in that video was completely untrue, and yet it was apparently seized upon online, spread wide and far, and made people believe what you were saying. So my question for you off the top here is, why did you race to spread such woeful disinformation, given the massive following you have, and encourage people to take action against a caricature and description of who had perpetrated this, which was simply untrue?
Well, firstly, I'll start by saying I didn't know Nigel Farage said those things about me, which is a shame because I'm actually a fan of him. I think he's trying to do the right thing. I also understand in his political sphere, sometimes he has to hang other people out to dry to save himself because he's getting heat also.
Andrew Tate's response to this is to say, just one piece of disinformation by getting the identity of the stabber wrong. I got the wrong stab. It's a classical rhetorical technique to minimize responsibility. By acknowledging a single error, he doesn't say sorry for it. He attempts to, well, he does say sorry, but in a sarcastic way. He attempts to portray himself as honest and transparent while subtly downplaying the broader impact of his actions. His approach deflects attention from the larger issue of his frequent dissemination of controversial and often harmful content. And by focusing on this specific instance of misinformation, Tate may be trying to create a perception that this was an isolated mistake. Sorry, just an isolated problem rather than part of a pattern. It's tactic which is effective in reducing the perceived severity of actions rather than making it seem as though critics are overreacting to a minor error, just a minor error, just the wrong stabber, stabbing in the wrong place. It ignores the wider context in which Tate has spread various forms of misinformation, particularly regarding issues relating to gender, relationships, social dynamics, his statements about women, masculinity, social norms, the distorts facts, promotes harmful stereotypes, his influence on the young, impressionable audiences, widely criticised for perpetuating toxic masculinity, for reinforcing negative gender norms. By admitting to one small mistake, Tate sidesteps the more substantial critiques of his overall message, the 4 million people who readily lapped up his lies, and the broader... How did he get this identity? This identity in this photograph, which Piers Morgan says absolutely is wrong. And what about the person who is in that photograph, who presumably is also in prison? But it's wrong stabber. This is... I admire Tate's rhetorical flourish. I despise his sarcastic admission of error. He couldn't apologize if he were on his knees. This is a man who is deeply arrogant. Deeply arrogant.
First of all Keir Starmer has said, as far as I can see, is that he is going to bring the full force of the law against people who committed acts of violence. And the violence that was perpetrated...
he called them far right.
Yeah, well, there were far-right thugs who were leading this, and they were attacking mosques, they were chanting anti-Muslim chants, and they were doing this because
there
people
was,
had put out there...
There was a black person in the crowd. Would you say
you've
the
had
crowd
your
was black
say.
people?
I'm going to have my say now. It was put out falsely on social media that the person who did this was a Muslim. Not just a Muslim, but a Muslim who came in on one of the small boats, part of the very contentious, ongoing issue of the small boat. I'm not saying you did. I'm saying this is what was put out on social media in a series of false posts, which then went viral, right? So he was supposedly a Muslim. Not true. Supposedly came in on a small boat. Not true. Supposedly on an MI6 watch list as a potential terrorist. Not true. None of this was true. And so on the back of that, far-right thugs who led this went up and attacked mosques, and they went and attacked hotels with asylum seekers in there waiting to be processed, and they was trying to set fire to them. Those are acts of despicable violence which were being led by far-right thugs. Now, not everybody involved in all these protests is a far-right thug. Some of them will be ordinary members of the public trying to legitimately protest peacefully. I completely accept it. But the ones who were leading it, who were committing the acts of violence and making the threats against the Muslim community, were doing so because they have been completely misled about who had done this. It was not a Muslim. It was not an illegal immigrant. It was not somebody on the MI6 watch list. It was none of those things. Now, you posted on July the 30th, the day after the killing, and I feel particularly incensed, by the way, that the deaths of these 3 young girls have been hijacked in such a reprehensible manner to attack Muslims when a Muslim had nothing to do with it, right? You put this on July the 30th, you posted a picture saying, this is the man from Cardiff. We're looking at this picture now. That murdered the little girl straight off a boat, you said. Really? He wasn't straight off a boat because this wasn't the person who perpetrated the crimes. You got 4.3 million views for this. And a community notes clarified, this is not the man that killed, attacked the children and adults in Southport. This image is of Kasonga Mabulu, who was arrested in Ireland in 2023 for a random knife attack at Dublin airport. So again, 24 hours later, you're posting more.
Okay.
You're posting more. You're posting complete
apologies.
disinformation.
I'm sorry,
it's not okay.
sir.
It's not okay.
No,
It
Piers,
was not the man.
Did I get the wrong stabber? Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, you did.
Piers Morgan, of
Yeah,
course.
you
I got
did.
the wrong
Yeah,
stabber.
you did.
And he certainly looked very Welsh to me. Let me make this clear. I'm a Muslim, and I think anybody who attacked a mosque is going to have to deal with God. I'm not worried about the full force of the law. They should worry about God itself. But I also want to make something very clear to all the people at home and clear to you that most of the white people are very frustrated and they're finding an enemy amongst themselves to take it out on. I think that the white people on these streets have a lot more in common with the brown people on these streets than they do with the politicians, because that's the problem we have here. Keir did not just only say they're going to face the full force of the law. He told everybody with a point of view, everybody who's concerned about the safety of their children, that they are extremists. And that is the most aggravating language you can possibly choose when people finally have had enough of not feeling safe on their own streets any longer. We have people who cannot afford to pay their bills watching migrants arrive who are now being held up in hotels at the taxpayers' expense for indefinite periods of time.
And the really interesting thing is here towards the end of this bit. I mean, the interview goes on for another 40 minutes or so, but Tate goes on to say that people are not feeling safe on their own streets. And yet these are the very people who then go on to make those streets unsafe. They torched the streets. There is something that is deeply twisted in the logic here. And then he goes on to talk about the leadership of Keir Starmer and the Ukraine, when, as Piers Morgan then rather brilliantly points out, actually, he says nobody voted for helping Ukraine. Yes, people did vote for that because that was part of the Labour manifesto. So they may not have voted for it earlier under the Conservatives, but they certainly voted for it under Labour, which won this stonking big manifesto. I mean, but what I find so astonishing about Tate is the speed of his comeback. He is quite brilliant. He is a formidable adversary in a debate. Mark Zuckerberg had said that the whole thing about Facebook was that you move fast, you break things. And if that is the principle of modern discourse, of modern social intercourse, Andrew Tate is a superb player because he breaks, he disrupts the space. But a broken world is a broken world, and the people who are disrupting are not replacing the things that they are breaking. People don't seem to want to achieve anything. They don't seem to want to build anything. They simply want to be rich and famous, rather than useful and inventive. What exactly is Andrew Tate trying to achieve, other than to be more Tate-like. I could say the same thing, incidentally, about Piers Morgan, but I shall restrain myself because I'm really very impressed with him in this interview.
We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. Nobody voted for it. Nobody wants it. And everybody's struggling to pay their bills. Energy prices are through the roof. Inflation is through the roof. Now they no longer feel safe on their streets. They don't want to put their daughters outside to play. The police won't protect them. The police won't turn up for most crimes unless it's something you say bad on Facebook. And when they look for a political solution, they're ignored. What kind of powder keg are we building here through incompetent leadership in the UK? This is nothing but a leadership failure. There's not a country in the world where leadership could fail this spectacularly and see any
Andrew,
different result.
All right. But once again, Andrew, you are spouting nonsense in what you've just said. Not all of it, but some of it is nonsense. You say, for example, nobody voted for the UK to support Ukraine. We've literally just voted Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom with a landslide majority, and he made it crystal clear before that election that he would be contributing billions of our pounds to help the people of Ukraine thwart a Russian dictator. Well, you may laugh, but you just literally said the complete opposite. So we did actually vote for a leader and a party that was completely committed to dedicating billions of pounds of taxpayer money to helping people in Ukraine defeat Vladimir Putin. So that, again, is a complete untruth that you've just espoused.
I'm sure the people who are protesting up there in the north of England who can't afford to pay their bills, who are watching migrants live for free in hotels, who don't feel safe at night because the police don't have enough resources to turn up and respond to crime, are very happy that we're sending money to Ukraine. You're completely right. Yeah, the fact he only had 20% of the populist vote has nothing to do with it. And the fact that every single party will send money to Ukraine because we live in a uni-party system which is corrupt to the core in the first place.
I'm going to stop it there, but I think, again, I think he is extraordinarily brilliant. But when he can't answer, he smiles in disdain. There's this huge toothy smile. Who did his dental work? Impressive stuff. Was that done cheaply in Romania, or was he born with those gnashers? I don't know. But the idea about the uni-party system is a convergence of nonsense, really. It's where he thinks everything converges into a single entity that essentially serves the same interests despite nominal differences, that it's some sort of conspiracy theory. Some people think that this is the United States, the Democrats and Republicans, a uni-party. Some people think the UK, the Conservatives and Labour, also a uni-party. Not genuinely different, but they're instead part of the same establishment control that itself controls the political discourse, limiting choice, suppressing real alternatives. What, like Reform UK? The point here is that this is. I think there are four major criticisms that can be made. First of all, it's an oversimplification. It reduces the complexity of our political system, and while mainstream parties may share some common ground on certain issues, they also differ significantly on others. For example, the Democrats and the Republicans in the US have differing, contrasting views on healthcare, taxation and social issues, and to reduce these differences to mere surface-level distinctions ignores the substantive policy debates that regularly occur. And the same thing here in the UK. There are substantial differences, contrasting differences between the two parties. The second point is the electoral dynamics. The idea that there's a uni-party neglects the role of the voters. It diminishes ordinary people who vote in what is a competitive election. Political parties must appeal to a broad range of voters. Now, I would like to see a more proportional representation. I would like to see the dynamics that are cemented together in the big political parties be cemented together in a post-election agreement, a post-election coalition of differing views, so that we can be pretty certain that the person that we elect is somebody whose views we can ascertain. As it is, we can elect somebody under the umbrella of the Conservatives, under the umbrella of the Labour Party, but we don't really know what they believe in because they've already had that debate about conforming to and about regulating their real interests so that they can they align with the party. I think that would be better to take place later. The third point that Andrew Tate misses out on is the policy outcomes. The Brexit in the UK represents a significant policy shift that reflects the distinct priorities of different parties and different groups of people. I may not like Brexit, but it is a very good example of how the policy outcomes that we get are not necessarily policy outcomes that everybody wants. If we were in a uni-party system, everybody would agree with the policy outcomes that actually emerge. Obamacare is another example in the States. And the fourth point is that there are diverse political actors, even within the mainstream parties. There's that range of views that hasn't been entirely suppressed by this debate that takes place to align the huge range of politicians that are subsumed into the big political parties. And the diversity contradicts the very idea of a monolithic uni-party. The existence of progressive Democrats in the US or the hard right faction in the Conservative Party in the UK absolutely illustrates that point, that there is no uni-party. There is no uni-party. Andrew Tate is talking through his uni-party orifice. It is unbelievably stupid. It's rather like it's rather like presenting himself as some sort of rectal donut. His critique might resonate with those disillusioned by the current political landscape, and there's plenty of us. But you can agree that the current political landscape is fractured and is skewed. But the reason for that is a uni-party. I mean, this is ludicrous. This is lunacy. There isn't that level of conspiracy that could unite everybody into some sort of uni-party. It's nonsense. The differences between the political parties, while sometimes subtle, are real, and the significance in shaping national policies is real. Those are significant differences, and the direction in which these different parties and different actors are moving is significantly different. There is no uni-party, either here in the United Kingdom or there in the United States, or frankly in Greece or Turkey. He is talking through his monumental donut, and he does so with great aplomb and brilliance, but he needs to be called out as absurd, and he might waylay some people with his misinformation, but I'm afraid he doesn't waylay me. And in fact, I'm going to stop there because I don't wish to be drawn into his world like some sort of inverted flatulence, sucked into his universe. I won't be.